What's going on, everybody? Good evening. Once again, it's a little bit later than I usually upload a video, but I wanted to give all the beat reporters and all the people associated with this team the opportunity to put out all the stuff surrounding the first OTA session for the Seahawks this year that was open to the media. So the first one we had on Monday closed. Didn't get to really see too much from it. Didn't get to learn anything from that day, really. But today, what went down at the VMAC was actually open to the media. So if you go on to X right now, you can find a ton of little video clips and pictures of what was going on the field with the various players and coaches. And you can also find a little bit of press conference and interview stuff with some of the players and coaches as well. So it's the first look behind the curtain at the OTA process now under Mike Macdonald. So I wanted to wait and make sure that everybody had their opportunity to put their stuff out. And at this point, the OTA it's been over for several hours now. So let's go ahead and sift through some of the information we got. Now, a lot of it is just like, oh, here's this video of this guy doing this drill. Here's this picture of this guy on the football field. Here's this slideshow of these players doing the tackling sled drill thing. Stuff like that, which is, cool, but there's not really much to say about it. But there is some stuff that came from the various Seahawks reporters that I do want to talk about here. So I'm going to go through roughly chronological order, and we'll see what we can see. So first thing that caught my attention, although this is very much a footnote, new kickoff returns. Remember, the kickoff returns are going to be different this year, and kickoff returns are going to matter more now. Having a good kick returner is really going to count for something. And there's definitely some debate over who is going to be our kick returner now with DJ Dallas gone. And Condotta was tweeting about it here, and he said that the first group that they used on kick returns was Eskridge and Lavishka Chenault. And hard for me to believe both those guys are going to make the team. Maybe they could if we keep 6 receivers. But realistically, even then, I feel like somebody else would creep in there other than Eskridge or Chenault, because we already have 4 spots basically on ice. So this is how one of these two guys can make the team for 2024. Prove that they are the best kickoff return guy available for the Seahawks, because that matters more. So personally, I would say that I would prefer that Eskridge win this job, because I believe because of the pay cut he took in the offseason, he's cheaper to keep than Chenault would be. I could be wrong about that. It could be basically equivalent. I think Eskridge is slightly cheaper. So if he can prove to be the better of the two, and also better of the group compared to the other guys who are probably going to get a chance at this, like Kenny McIntosh, then I think that's the ideal scenario. Now, the true ideal scenario, I think, the perfect scenario, not involving these two, would be McIntosh, because he's making the team anyway, because he's the 3rd or 4th running back. But of these two, I'm hoping it can be Eskridge. Do something while you're here, man. And Eskridge was not a bad kick returner previously either. He was just hard to stay on the field for too many of them. All right, we had this from Aaron Levine, just some comments from Mike Macdonald. He did give an interview. A lot of the people basically reported on what Macdonald had to say in his little press conference. About 20% of the defense is in right now, according to him, which, I mean, it's a complicated defense. There's a lot of moving parts to it. So the fact, I mean, that actually sounds pretty good, right? 20% of the defense is in, and we've had rookie mini camps and 2 days of OTAs. Like, assuming, I know that they're doing stuff off the field as well that isn't encompassed by the OTAs, isn't encompassed by the mini camps, but 20% is not bad. And that tells me, if that's true, whatever that may mean, we're on track, because once you get to August, you're going to be doing training camp stuff constantly, and there's going to be a great opportunity to pretty much get the rest of it in. So looking good there for as much as that's worth. McDonald also had the walkie-talkie calling the defensive plays at practice. This is obviously not surprising. McDonald calling the defensive plays is what we were told would happen when the hire was made, and that seems to continue to be the case. I will say, generally speaking, you want your coordinator to handle play calling so your head coach can focus on head coach stuff. I remember years ago there was a clip with the Dallas Cowboys back when Jason Garrett was their head coach, and he was also their offensive play caller. There were some clips that kind of showcased him being pulled between the two different responsibilities of being the head coach and being the play caller, and it's hard. Like, there's some plays where he wants to go talk to a referee, but he can't because he's got to get the next play call in. So, in an ideal world, we're eventually going to get a DC that can handle these play calling duties, but for now, this is really the only way to go. We also got an update on Abe Lucas, and it wasn't great. I will say that it's not maybe surprising, but when Mike McDonald was asked about Abe Lucas, he said, I don't know, hard to say. He's really trying hard in rehab, and we're hoping he'll be ready for camp. So we're hoping is typically something that Pete Carroll would say when he really should have been saying it's not going to happen. He was usually overly optimistic about injury things. Now, McDonald, maybe he won't be like that. Maybe he'll be overly pessimistic about things. Maybe he'll just be random. Maybe he'll be real and honest. But we're hoping doesn't sound very confident, right? That sounds to me like it wouldn't be a surprise if he's not ready for camp. And if he's not ready for camp, then, everything just kind of immediately stinks, because that sets you back for the rest of the season. We've seen players miss camp and then start the season really slow probably because they're just not in the flow of things yet. Like, remember Dwayne Brown a couple years ago? He started the season off really poorly after holding out for most of camp, and he rounded into form by the end of the season. But the point is, those training camp reps matter even to a guy like Dwayne Brown, who at that point was very much a veteran. So, don't love hearing this, but I guess nothing's a surprise with Abe Lucas anymore. If he ends up not playing very much football in the rest of his life, it wouldn't shock anybody. Corbin has this, not that this really, I don't feel very strongly about this one way or the other, but Seahawks will not do joint practices this year. Could happen down the road. I don't know of any correlation between joint practices and the success of the teams that participate in them versus the ones that don't, so I don't really have much to say about it. But, yeah, no joint practices this year for the Seahawks. Aaron Levine talked a little bit about Rayshawn Jenkins because he was interviewed. He had a little bit of a press conference today after the OTA. Rayshawn Jenkins says the Niners matched the Seahawks offer, but he came to Seattle because the state of Washington doesn't have income tax, which is pretty interesting. Because you would assume that in a vacuum, a player would prefer to go to the Niners over the Seahawks right now, because the Niners are so close to maybe winning a championship, and the Seahawks are going through a little bit of a retool. I'm not calling it a rebuild, but it is a little bit of a retool, and didn't make the playoffs last year. So that's kind of interesting. Now, hey, he was honest about it, right? It's like it's the money. But it does remind me that is a weapon that we should be trying to utilize as much as possible in free agency. There is a massive difference between signing a contract with the Seahawks and signing a contract with the Niners, signing a contract with the Jets, signing a contract with a lot of these teams. A lot of states have income tax. So, pretty interesting for him to just be very honest about it. I found it pretty amusing, honestly. Aaron Levine also had this. Geno Smith says about 15 offensive guys, including Sam Howell, all went to Cabo together to team build this offseason. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff. And John Boyle actually had this tweet kind of on this topic as well, about how Geno Smith is being pushed to take the next step as a leader and a football player, and how he's really excited about Geno and about how hard Geno works. You hear about things like this, And you really, here's what I'm going to say, because you guys know that I am generally very pro Gino, and I've always, ever since he started playing well over a year and a half ago, I've been in his corner. And it's stuff like this that just makes it very easy, where, yeah, he's not perfect. Yeah, he's going to do stuff that we don't like. Yeah, he's going to have bad plays. He's going to probably have some bad games. But I look at stuff like this and I see him going the extra mile. I see him trying to maximize what he can do in this league. I see him really pushing himself to try to be more than what he currently is. And not all players do that. So I look at something like this and I think to myself, this can get better. Because one thing about Gino that some people have talked about is that he hasn't really become a leader yet. So if he can grow into that leadership role, like when KJ Wright was asked about Geno Smith being a leader, he basically blew it off. He said, absolutely not. And I think that there is some validity to that, even though I don't agree with KJ Wright a lot on a lot of his Geno related takes. I do think there's something to that, and it's good to hear that maybe he can get better in that area. So I look at something like this, and it makes me believe that Gino will never be an elite quarterback, or he'll never be some Mahomes, Allen level quarterback. He'll never be a Joe Burrow even, I don't think, but he's going to maximize what he can get, and that should be good enough for this team to have success with. So, shout out to him for continuing to go the extra mile even after he got the contract. Condotta went on a little bit of a tweet thread here about the offensive line. Anthony Bradford, he twisted his ankle in Monday's practice, so he was not on the field today. Should be a very minor thing that he gets back to soon. That left the starting offensive line: Cross, Tomlinson, Oluwatimi, Curtis, and Fant. So, first of all, Tomlinson, I guess this signifies he's the clubhouse leader to be the left guard, which I really do not like. I'm really not a fan of that. Really hoping that that won't happen or will only happen for a short period of time, personally. Cross and Oluwatimi, as expected. McClendon Curtis over Christian Haynes to start out. Condotta actually notes this and points out that he's a rookie. He's still learning. So it does make some sense. But McClendon Curtis is a guy who has a very low ceiling and a very, very thin future with this team. So it's still a little bit surprising to me that Haynes wouldn't just get tossed right in. So I did find that to be interesting, though. I'm not saying there's anything to be alarmed about yet. Christian Haynes was practicing at right guard with the backups. But I'm a little bit surprised we didn't just say, you know what, we know he's going to start, so let's just do it. The backup offensive line: Raekwon O'Neal, Tremaine Ankrum, Nick Harris, Christian Haynes, Michael Jarrell. So that would mean no Greenfield, actually. That means no Greenfield, which I actually think that Greenfield has a better chance of making this team than a guy like Raekwon O'Neal or Ankrum. And I don't think his chance of making the team is all that different than Michael Jarrell, even. All right, so that's about it, other than the good news we got about Nwosu. He was a quote-unquote full go today. Now, full go does come with a caveat because it was no contact. But Nwosu did say he absolutely plans to be ready by training camp. He sounds a lot more confident about it than Lucas does. So he did participate as much as he could today, which was meaningful. I like it. I mean, it's certainly better than the alternative, but again, non-contact. So it sounds like Nwosu's going to be ready, which is, it's better to hear than the alternative. All right, those are the main news updates we got from this training camp. Pretty happy about it, pretty excited about it, pretty good with all of it. There were a handful of players that weren't participating. There were a handful of players that weren't there. Oh yeah, Condotta does actually list a little bit of that here. No Metcalf, no Reed, no Williams, no Jones. Didn't see Stone Forsythe. Forsythe is a guy who could easily lose his job on the team, by the way, so he should get out there ASAP. Dodson was there, did not do team stuff. Jerome Baker still rehabbing. So we're still feeling things out at the inside linebacker spot. Kind of uncomfortable. But yeah, remember the OTAs are totally voluntary, and it makes sense that players like Metcalf, Reed, Williams, and even Draymond Jones wouldn't show up because they're veterans. They know what's up. They don't need to participate. So there you go. See you guys later. Go Hawks.